I was really interested in that issue of people mistreating themselves, and that's not good. You have to treat yourself as if you're valuable, and that's absolutely crucial, and it is hard for people to learn that. Hard for them to learn not to beat themselves up too much.
You often act like it's you against the world, but most often it's you against yourself. We all have an inner critic or judge that tells us we are not good enough, that we don't deserve success or happiness. This inner critic can be so powerful that we start to believe it and act on those negative thoughts, even when they're not true. Nietzsche wrote, "The worst enemy you can meet will always be yourself." We often self-sabotage our opportunities, we make harmful choices, and we hold ourselves back from achieving our dreams. In this video, we're going to listen to Dr. Jordan Peterson advice on how to deal with this problem. So if you would like to stop acting like your worst enemy and become your best friend instead, watch this video till the end. One of the most difficult things when it comes to mistreating yourself is dealing with your hypercritical thinking. How can we work on our blind spots and mistakes without engaging in a self-destructing dialogue? It was very helpful to hear Dr. Peterson addressing this problem in one of his Q&A sessions.
So this question is about hypercritical thinking?
Yep.
Now everyone knows that critical thinking is a great thing to develop. You have to be able to, I guess, think about your ideas. So if information is presented to you, you have to decide if it's legitimate or if there's some sort of deceit behind it. But when it's taken to its extreme, no matter how great or noble somebody is, you can always find a crack in the armor and try to figure out how they're covering up something that's not great about them, you know? And you might then discredit everything they do as just a facade.
So there's this idea that Carl Jung developed. He extracted it, I don't know from where, from some ancient writings that he was familiar with. I believe they were Jewish writings. He said that, classically speaking, traditionally speaking, God was viewed to rule being with two hands, the right hand and the left hand, and the right hand was justice, and that was you're going to get what's coming to you. But the left hand was mercy. And the idea essentially was that the cosmos could not exist without the proper combination of justice and mercy. You should get what's coming to you. But people are fallible and they make mistakes. And so it's reasonable to apply that to yourself.
Unfortunately, we don't. The balance between the mercy and the justice, it's definitely distorted. We tend to be very critical of ourselves. We are not showing ourselves the same level of kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend or loved one who is struggling. Have you noticed that you offer more care and consideration to others?
One example of that, I've written about this in my new book too, is that, if you have a pet that's sick and you take it to the vet and you get medication, you're very likely to give the pet the entire course of medication, to go to the pharmacy to get the prescription filled, to give the pet the medication, to follow it through. But if you are the person who has the problem, you all laugh because you know the story. It's like a third of you won't even go fill the prescription, and of the remaining 2/3 of you, half won't take it to completion. And you think, well, why are people like that? And I think it's because they know themselves, they have contempt for themselves because of their flaws, and then they come to despise themselves.
So we simply don't appreciate ourselves the same way. Even more, we tend to dislike ourselves for our imperfections. Instead of being our own biggest supporters, we sabotage the way we treat ourselves. Who, if not you, is supposed to offer mercy and compassion towards yourself? Could you accept your imperfections and see yourself like someone worth taking care of? In your life, there will always be someone who won't see your worth. Don't let it be you.
I was really interested in that issue of people mistreating themselves, because we are privy to our own weaknesses and faults. We know them better than anyone else knows them. And so it's very easy for us to determine that we're not worthwhile because of all the ways that we don't live up to what we should live up to, and the painful knowledge we have of that, and to not regard ourselves as worthwhile, and to not treat ourselves properly. And that's not good. You have to treat yourself as if you're valuable. And then that is the same attitude that you extend to other people. Well, and it's because you are valuable, and that it's a necessity to adopt the responsibility that goes along with recognizing that. So even if you're not happy with who you are, and even if you have your reasons, you still deserve presumption of innocence. You still deserve to have a good defense mounted on your own behalf. You still need to treat yourself as if you're someone valuable and someone worthy of love, even though you have all reasons to know why you fall short. Yeah. And that's absolutely crucial, and it is hard for people to learn that. Hard for them to learn not to beat themselves up too much.
The path of self-improvement starts with self-acceptance. It's important to have high aspirations and expectations of yourself, but the thing is, if we don't give ourselves the right kind of support and encouragement, it's a really difficult uphill journey. You have the moral obligation to treat yourself in the best possible way. Here is a helpful advice from Dr. Peterson.
You have a moral obligation, so that would be a responsibility, to assume that despite all evidence, that there's actually something of intrinsic worth about you, and that as a consequence, you're duty-bound to treat yourself like that is true. And then it turns out that if you do that, well, then your life gets better. And I don't mean happier exactly, although I would say it gets happier. I mean it gets richer and more meaningful and deeper and more worthwhile, and you become more educated and you become wiser, and you treat yourself with more respect, and you're a better model for other people, and you're a better father or better sister or better mother, whatever it happens to be. And you're less ridden by that guilt that gnaws at you, and shame that's there otherwise saying, you're not what you could be, you're not what you could be. And that's a hell of a voice to get rid of, and it's certainly not one that's easy to ignore. So that's a pretty good, that idea that there's something divine, let's say, that resides within you of ultimate worth. Even as a philosophical statement or a psychological statement rather than a metaphysical statement, it seems to be a precondition for establishing properly harmonious relationships with yourself.
If you can be kind and supportive to others, you can try to be this way with yourself too. It doesn't mean you would never acknowledge your weaknesses or mistakes, but you could do it without making yourself feel guilty and less valuable. Would you ever criticize your friends the way you criticize yourself? Probably not. Other people are not perfect, just like you, but you still treat them like they deserve compassion and kindness.
You have to put forward to yourself the same sympathy, we could say, that you would extend to someone else that you cared for. That's the thing, is that you have to come to treat yourself as if you're someone that you care for. And I mean that technically. You detach yourself from yourself and you think, okay, well, if I was going to construct a mode of being that was optimal for this person that I happen to be, what would that look like? And that's sort of independent of whether or not you think you deserve it. It's like maybe you deserve it and maybe you don't. Innocent until proven guilty, that's a pretty good policy. But you should come to lay out a mode of being for yourself that gives you some credit, and that will also help you in your dealings with other people, but it's often very difficult for people to do that to themselves.
It's very easy to take yourself for granted, and we often forget that one of the most important relationships in our life is the relationship you have with yourself. It will influence every other relationship in your life, and it will determine how much joy you're experiencing on a daily basis. I hope that from now on, you're going to be more gentle with yourself, and you're going to start treating yourself like a person you're responsible for helping. Thanks for watching. See you next time.